Hi, all. I'm very glad to see you all here today in our fully online conference. Thank you for joining. My name is Ula, and I will be moderating the whole event and will be here with you today. Today, we will have a lot of in-depth talks and presentations about gender gap topic with a focus on Nordic and Baltic region, including a number of presentations on initiatives that are being driven across the region. We will have an introduction of a study on ICT workforce and its gender challenge after COVID-19 pandemic, and then a panel discussion on the future of diversity in tech. To start with, I'd like to pass the word on to Žydrūnė Vitaitė, who is a co-founder of Women Go Tech, and she will give a warm welcome to all of you and share a bit more of a context of why we're here today and why do we need to solve the gender challenge in general. Žydrūnė, word over to you.
Hello, everyone, participants of this event today. My name is Žydrūnė, as presented by Ula, and it's a pleasure to host you all. And most importantly, it's a pleasure to have your time, your dedication to this important topic, to discuss the gender gap in tech ecosystem and to look for different ways and different ideas in how to make it inclusive. Together with Women Go Tech, we are spending years, I'd say already, in trying to analyze and understand what are the root causes, what it is that we can do. And we are very happy to collaborate and cooperate with the Nordic Council of Ministers, who are partners in the project, to look not only from a Lithuanian perspective, but most importantly, to look on the regional perspective, on the Nordics and Baltics, and look for different examples and different initiatives that could be used as a good example in solving the challenges. And why we are looking in the Nordic and Baltic region. In one of the studies that Mantas Sekmokas today is going to present, we were analyzing the ICT sector itself and the contribution of the different sectors to the EU economy, If looking into the region and the number of ICT specialists that we have, Nordic and Baltic is significant in the EU economy. If we compare the top 9 of the EU countries, Nordic and Baltic region would be number 3 in the number of ICT specialists that are working in the sector right now. And as you can see in the slide, all of the markets have a projection to grow in number of specialists in the upcoming 5 years. And you most probably noticed in the recent events with the COVID-19 becoming quite an accelerator in the digitalization across the sectors, it's definitely going to play an important role. However, there are some challenges, but we noticed together with Women Go Tech and what we see on the EU level. The number of, the percentage of women amongst all ICT specialists is projected to increase only marginally in the upcoming 5 years, from 18.5% in 2020 to 19.1% in 2025. Despite the fact of the discussions and the initiatives and the attention that is given on the global scale, the percentage of women in the tech sector is not increasing so rapidly. And with the potential of the ICT industry itself, we see a great importance to focus on the issue and and look for alternative ways in closing the gender gap. What is also important, in gender topics, we typically discuss that there is a pipeline issue, and we not only need to look into the adults part, but also pay attention into the educational systems. What we see recently, although the full data is not available, but the share of women amongst young adults with ICT degree over the last 5 years increased only by 2 percentage points, from 14.7 in 2015 to 16.7 in 2020, which is also not giving such a positive perspective looking towards the future. And the potential and the size of the ICT sector, as shown in the previous graph, gives us good hopes that there is a place for different specialists, for different specialties that keep coming up in the recent years. However, if the gender gap is not being discussed, is not being closed, there is a huge talent gap issue that is being faced in the upcoming 5 years that we, together with the participants, not only today, but in the upcoming initiatives, would like not only to discuss, but also solve together. So together with our partners in the project, we were looking and identifying the various grassroots initiatives that are encouraging these female participation in the tech industry. We were sharing different experiences and looking for those successful, I'd say, successful ways or successful examples in how the gender gap could be closed. We were looking for different ideas how the initiatives could be scaled. We have first examples on the expansion of some initiatives cross-country. We were looking into different participants of the sectors, the NGO sector actively playing here. And I'm sure that we have representatives from different industries, from different organizations today, who are our partners, who can be partners in solving the gender gap challenges within the region. So today, I invite you not only to listen to some findings, not only to listen to the panelists and their insights, but also be very active in connecting to each other, in making sure that the best ideas are captured and the collaborations are established and continued afterwards. So have good insights, have good connections, and a very quality event.
Questions? No questions, no. Thank you very much, Jadruna, for your topic. And as Jadruna mentioned, it is extremely important for us to network. The initiatives and the stakeholders across different countries are the ones who start bringing the change in the very first place. This is why we really wanted to dedicate a bit of a time, a few minutes, for all of us, for all of the guests of our conference, to quickly and interactively meet with each other in YouTube's broadcast, in a chat section, as well as in description, you can find a link to Miro board. Please click on it. Please open the window yourself. And I will quickly guide you through of how we encourage all of us to build a network together. So once you open the window, you can zoom out using your mouse, and then you'll find a lot of cards, as you can see in my shared window, a lot of cards where you're asked to add your name, your current position, which organization do you represent, and link to your LinkedIn profile. Please note that this is all voluntarily, and add your information only for this conference's guests. We will have this board open for 1 week after the conference, and then we will close it down. We invite you to add your contacts, to leave your LinkedIn profile, and connect with each other to find the people who think alike, who have the same values, who run the same projects, connect to our speakers, connect to all of the guests and the team, and hope that you will bring a lot of new good initiatives and great insights and make new connections in here. For this specific exercise, we have 6 minutes. So please find your card, move down, move up, simply double click on the card to start, edit it, and complete it. Of course, if you have any troubles or difficulties, please comment in the chat next to your broadcasting video, and our team will gladly help you.
Hello all, my name is Susanna Beiro and I'm research manager at TEK, which stands for the Academic Engineers and Architects in Finland. And I have been asking us to talk about gender diversity and workplace inclusion in the field of technology, and especially the current situation, what it looks like in the Nordics. And I would just like to say very briefly about TEK, that is the trade union and the professional organization of engineers mainly, but we have also architects and other professionals in the field of technology as our members. We have over 70,000 members in Finland. And about gender here, so I am mostly talking about men and women. It's actually quite difficult to find data on gender minorities, but that doesn't mean that we should forget about them. But just to say that here I will be focusing mostly on men and women. Okay, so let's continue. So I actually have three main areas that I'm going to talk about. So first I have some numbers from the Nordic countries. Then I'm going to talk more deeply into about how does gender matter in the field of technology, especially in light of evidence from Finland, which is the one I know best. And then I would also like to propose a kind of shift in the focus of these discussions. So let's start with numbers from the Nordics. So when we are talking about STEM, which is the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, it is well known that that is predominantly male-dominated field. These recent statistics from the EU, or from the Council of Ministers report, show that in the EU, the number of women is about 1 out of 3. And it's about roughly the same in the Nordic countries, although in Finland, actually the percentage share of women in STEM education is slightly lower. And that is particularly in the fields of technology and engineering, and in the secondary level, but also in the tertiary level in polytechnics, for instance. The interesting thing is that you could have taken this graph actually from several previous years and it wouldn't have changed that much. I mean, the number of women has been increasing, but it has been rather modest, the increases, just like was referenced to also in the first presentation of the conference. But it's also important to realize that there are differences within STEM. So there are fields where actually women are the majority, such as biology in the university. And then there are fields where women are like less than 10%, like in some engineering fields. So when we're talking about the gender gap in STEM, we need to understand that there are differences even within those fields. Then if we're looking at the labor market, the situation looks sort of even more difficult in the sense that this is the graph of the male-dominated industries, and there is construction, utilities, IT, ICT, which are the particular topics today. So there, if you look at the EU average, is 1 out of 4 are women, while then in most Nordic countries, it's either 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 4 as in the EU in general. So actually, the interesting thing is that Finland is among the most gender segregated countries in the EU, in the OECD even, when we are looking at men and women. So that means that there are these fields that are very strongly dominated by men, and then there are others dominated by women. And very few where actually women and men like sort of equally work side by side. So that is really, really an interesting phenomenon, and I could talk long to you about why it is so, or why it's so difficult to change, but we'll get to that too. Then reflecting the previous graph, we have the gender pay gap, and this one actually shows some encouraging developments in the sense that the gender pay gap has been reducing in recent years. Particularly in this graph, there's Iceland, where it has reduced actually quite dramatically. But then there are others where it hasn't reduce that much, like Finland. But of course, this one shows only like the sort of raw difference between the wages of women and men. So it's not only about like this doesn't actually tell you much about how much women and men earn in the same fields or in the same jobs. So it tells you more about like the overall difference between men and women. But I will get to the more detailed ones in a few minutes. Okay, so when we are talking about how is it that gender matters so much? So that is really the interesting question here. I conducted a study a few years ago where I interviewed persons from 10 different engineering or technology companies. And these are some of the comments that I got when I was asking that, so are the companies planning to do something about their gender distribution, or are there targets for increasing the number of women or such? And there was a male CEO who commented that it would be difficult to recruit the less competent one of two candidates just to fill in a female quota. That would not be fair from any point of view. A female HR director commented that it would be degrading to the person also that because you're a woman or of this background, we should recruit you to get diversity, although you don't have the skills that we require. So both of these persons actually, and even in general, the others in the interviews were making the point that it should only be based on competence or merit that a person can advance in the company. The problem is, as you can see from these quotes, that somehow the female is always at a disadvantage. So when they are saying that there are two candidates and one of them is less competent, it is the female. So also this is reflected in the fact that women and men are not equally represented in different positions. So what we hear a lot is that, well, of course, there are less women in top management because there are less women in technology in general, or in ICT, or whatever the field is that we are talking about. But that is actually not quite true, in the sense that when we are looking at the number of people and the percentage share of women in expert positions, we actually have about 30% females. Well, as this graph shows, then the higher we sort of climb the ladder in the organization, the less women we have in these positions. So that's why I think it's somewhat misleading to say that it is only because we don't have enough women in the field, or who don't have the degrees, that we don't have women in top management. Then looking at the gender pay gap now in more detail. So these are data from that we collect from our members every year. So this one, for instance, in 2020 had about 9,000 respondents. So we are comparing people with similar, I mean, they have the same educational background and they work in similar companies and other organizations, and they have similar posts. So that makes it much more reliable to compare the results, the pay of these people. So when we look at this, we can see that for all respondents, there is a clear gender difference. So women are paid less. And in fact, that difference is consistent throughout the graph, so that in all duties, in all positions, women are paid less than men. The difference is smaller when we are looking at expert positions, and then it's particularly wide actually in top management, where, as we already saw in the previous slide, there are actually a lot less women anyway. So the overall gender wage gap in the tech data for 2020 was that women earn on average 89% of what the men earn, and this is with the same educational background and with similar posts. However, when we are trying to take into account the fact that, of course, there are differences according to like the sector where people work and the kind of duties that they have precisely. And then, of course, what is really important besides the demand level, meaning like which is then reflected in the position, is also the work experience that the people have. So then when we're looking at work experience also and all kinds of other things that we could try to take into account in our regression model, we came to 95%. So when we try to take into account everything else that it could be relevant for that position, women still earn 5% less than men. So that's why one could say that the gender pay gap in tech in Finland is either around 90% or it's 95%, but there is still a gap anyway. And one could ask that why is it that people with the same educational qualifications and who graduate from the same schools and who work in the same companies still don't have the same pay? Then there are, of course, differing views actually on the equal opportunities that women and men have. So reflecting all this, I think it is actually understandable that women are more likely to disagree with the statement that the genders have identical career advancement opportunities, because in many companies that is actually not the case. So what is also important to remember is that, or understand, is that the workplaces differ a lot. So you can have a workplace where there has been a lot of attention to equality issues and where women are encouraged to try to get further in their careers and all that. And then you have others where either these things are not discussed at all, or it's just not paid attention to in any way. So for instance, in a new study that is coming out in Finland next week by Accenture, they found that in those kind of cultures that they labeled more inclusive, 85% of the women are satisfied with the pace of their career advancement, while in the less inclusive cultures, it is only 21% who feel so. So lastly, I would just like to say that it could be interesting to think about how to shift the focus of our conversation, since it has seemed so very, very difficult to make any dramatic changes in this topic. So there was a study by the Nordic Council of Ministers by Jansson and Sand, where they said that it is assumed that women need to be stimulated and inspired to choose science and technology, that they need to, in effect, change themselves. Such an approach is based on the assumption that it is enough to fix the women to solve the problem of the gender segregated labor market. But unfortunately, that renders the gender inequality and structural barriers invisible. Therefore, I have been actually recently thinking that we keep talking about the underrepresentation of women. Should we instead talk about the overrepresentation of men? Because talking about the underrepresentation of women seems to keep the focus all the time on women. And how are they less? They are less interested, they are less this, they are less that. So should we actually talk about the men and their overrepresentation so that we could actually start to look at the structures that perpetuate this male domination and privilege in these fields? And this would mean that we would start to ask all kinds of new questions, such as, who are these men and why are they overrepresented? And to me, most importantly, actually, why would they be interested in pursuing change? Because if we don't get the men to want the change, it's not going to happen. So, 3 takeaways. Yes, we have progress, but it is so slow. Secondly, it is important to realize that gender does matter. So to say that it doesn't, one is either naive or in denial, because we can see these differences in education, recruitment, career advancement, pay, etc. And then again, the third one is that, so instead of keeping our focus on the underrepresentation of women, should we instead start to talk about the overrepresentation of men, and then the structures and barriers that are there in organizations? Thank you. That was my talk.
Thank you very much, Susanna. Thank you for a very interesting and in-depth coverage of the whole topic. We actually have one question in our broadcast channel. And before I read the question, I want to encourage everyone who's watching to type your questions down during every speech, because we're gonna cover it after everyone. So the first question that comes from Viva. She says, "Hi, Susanna. What are the good practices that the Nordic countries implement to reduce the pay gap?"
That is a great question. I think probably we might need to ask the Icelandics about that, since it seems that they have managed to do that. I would just say, and this is just on the basis of the fact that since at least in Finland the gender pay gap is so strongly reflects this segregation in the labor markets. So it could be that if we could do something about that. Then another thing, of course, is that if there has been, because we know that a lot of women are working in the low paid social and healthcare sectors. So if there's something that has been done to increase the pay in those fields, then that, of course, again, would reduce the gender pay gap. But so unfortunately, I cannot say that I would have like a recipe for success from Finland on this topic. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I guess if anyone would have this recipe, we would not be here in a conference, right? And I would not talk about this. So, yeah. Susanna, one more from me. It's actually more about the tech itself. So what tech organization is doing to change or improve the situation? Are there any actions, specific ones?
Okay, thanks. So one thing is, of course, that so we keep studying this. So for me, this is a personally very important topic to me, and actually the gender gap in technology is also the topic of my doctoral dissertation, which I'm currently working on. But so I have been conducting studies on this for several years now at Tech. And then so we are trying to like keep bringing the data, because it seems that it is really difficult to change the way people see things unless they keep having the data. And especially when we're talking about engineers and men, now to be very stereotypical, it helps to have numbers to show that, okay, so this is the situation. So that's one thing that we keep talking about it and keep like trying to bring it to the discussion and conversation in Finland at least. And then secondly is that we are trying to do different kind of things with companies. We are involved in some initiatives with them, but also we are trying to educate the employer representatives so that they know better what to do at the workplaces, because they can of course have a far wider reach than we can as such. And then also we take part in different cooperation projects, such as there's one called NOW, equal, I'm translating now from Finnish to English very quickly, equal careers in tech, I think, or something like that. So we have pages for that project. It's an ESR funded project, so we have our pages for that. And so trying to, again, like bring together different parties that are working around this area, and then trying to find solutions together, because it's not going to change very easily or very quickly, and we can't do it alone.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Susanna. Thank you for such an in-depth responses and your presentation. Moving up next, we have Jurgita Sinkevičiūtė, an accelerator program manager at Startup Wise Guys, and she will cover a bit more on CE region with a focus on Baltics, about the startup ecosystem in recent years. Hello, Jurgita.
Hello, Ula. Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today here. I'm super happy to share the overview of the gender equality in CE region startup ecosystem in recent years. And shortly about myself. So I'm Jurgita. I am Startup Accelerator Program Manager at Startup Wise Guys for this past year. And Startup Wise Guys is actually investment fund which first invests into early stage startups and second help them grow by running these amazing mentorship driven acceleration programs. So today I will try to share my insights after having some experience working with startup founders. And to start, let's jump right into some numbers. So I want to walk you through this gender representation in CEE region startups founded in recent years. And after glimpsing at this data, you can see that only 15% of startups from the CEE region, excluding Baltics, were founded by diverse teams, meaning that they had at least one woman on the founding team. And the rest was founded by men-only teams, the 85%. Moving further, we can see Baltics and even lower percentage, 13%. If we try to divide Baltics into Baltic states, so as I am Lithuanian, I am super happy to draw your attention to this bigger percentage, like 20% in the Lithuania. However, from the other side, we have Latvia with only 6% of the startups founded by diverse teams. And I think that I know what is your initial thought after seeing this data, after seeing these numbers, like, wow, what a low percentage of the diverse founding teams. But I would like to look at it from the different perspective. If we would take the absolute number of the startups founded recently, this is the biggest amount that we ever had. And what if I tell you that we actually never had this many startups founded by the diverse teams before? So I think that looking at this data from this perspective really brings some hope, and also like the whole fact is actually very uplifting. I also want to share one thought of the senior data analyst from Crunchbase. And she said, we started to gather data about the gender representation in the global startup founding teams in 2009. And at that time, we had only 10 newly funded startups founded with teams with at least one woman on board. But now, after a decade, we have 20% of those same global startups founded by the diverse teams. And for me, this progress is huge. It sounds amazing, and it was did only in a decade. So there is something that we can be happy about, but then again, there is a lot of room for the improvement. And what could be the ways of actually reducing this gender gap, of the stimulating the diverse teams, the female founders, to come and turn their ideas into startups? And I think that there is no one or no right answer to this question. But we already have some very nice examples around in this region in our ecosystem. So first, I think that one of the most important things is to lead by example and to have those role models who would inspire others to join the ecosystem. And we actually don't need to look for them far away. We have them here already in the CEE region. And one of them is Milda Mitkutė, who founded this Lithuanian startup Vinted, which actually became a unicorn recently in 2019. And now Milda is inspiring and encouraging other female founders to turn their ideas into startups, and maybe it will become a unicorn one day. Then I think that it's very, very important to share the knowledge and passion with those who want to step in this startup ecosystem. So I'm really happy that we already have many initiatives in the CE region, just like Women Go Tech, Future Heroes, Riga Tech Girls, Gi Girls, Carrots, who that actually focus on women's education, encouragement, and inclusion in this tech world, and actually expanded their activities recently, and now help thousands of women together to step in this whole ecosystem. And then thirdly, it's more and more investors are being supportive and actually willing to help female founders and those gender balanced teams to succeed. And this year, the first venture capital fund called the Better Fund was founded in Estonia, and it's mainly focusing on helping female founders to access capital in our region. And at this point, I think that this support, which comes from other side, from the investors, is very, very important too. So to sum up everything, I truly believe that right role models, educational initiatives, and supportive investors can lead and will lead us to even like bigger progress and to the numbers which will reach limits we never seen before in the upcoming years. So let's go. Let's continue to create this change in the gender equality situation in the startup ecosystem. And I would be happy to discuss more with you. So you can don't hesitate to contact me via email or the LinkedIn. Thanks.
Jurgita, thank you very much. I actually have a few questions myself. As you touched upon a really interesting angle, right? Startups and female there. So how in general are startups like founded by diverse team doing in terms of the investment? Is there any difference?
Yeah, so from like, if we look at the numbers, the investment amount is like a bit lower, but it's like very natural as we in general have like less teams founded by female founders. But then I would like to share this, a couple of numbers from the recent years. So in 2019, diverse startups who were founded by diverse teams attracted $20 billion of investment, which is just amazing. And this number is 13% bigger than a year before. And also the value of that investment grew by 9%. So I think that every year the situation is getting better. And yeah, we never had these big numbers before.
And does your organization, like Startup Wise Guys, put any effort into investing more into diverse teams?
Yes, so of course, we truly support female founders, and we are super happy whenever they reach out to us and like present their ideas. And I'm happy to share that for in the past year, we made 10 successful investments into the startups who were founded by females. So that's very, very uplifting fact to share. But then when we are selecting the startups into which we are going to invest, first thing on which we focus is usually the founder market fit, and we try to stay as much as possible gender blind. So we would like evaluate everyone equally.
Okay, that makes sense. Maybe the very last question of mine, okay, because you touched again startups, but what about the investment funds and gender in there? Is there any like equality, like gender equality among people who are working in the investment funds?
So the situation in the investment funds, it's quite similar to the founding teams, and so 85% of the whole people who work in the investment funds in the CEE region are men. But on the other side, I can share some data from our fund, Startup Wise Guys. So we happily have more than 60% of females working in the Startup Wise Guys and in this investment field, and also one woman investment partner who is actually making those investment decisions. So yeah, we are really proud of that.
Yeah, well, that's the positive thought to complete your presentation. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me.
And then moving forward, we have now on stage, and I'd like to invite Mantas Sekmokas, who is a co-author of a study that will be presented here and now for the first time, and it's on ICT workforce and its gender challenge after COVID-19. Hello, Mantas. Welcome, and the stage is yours.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you, Ulla, very much for the presentation and the introduction. So as Ulla mentioned, my objective today will be to give you everyone a short glimpse, a very high-level overview of a study that was prepared exactly for this occasion and should be made now public today or in the coming few days, I believe, on the event website. And of course, there is much more in this study. So as soon as it is published, I would then invite everyone very much to look further in it. And here I will try to only present a few features or few elements that probably would be more interesting, but definitely not everything that's in there. So to give you a little bit of the context for the study, and of course for the project, is then whenever we are talking about digital gender divide, it's of course an issue not limited to the Baltic countries or Nordic countries, but it is an issue discussed globally. And certainly there are certain aspects that are common to Europe and other parts of the world. Other issues are less common. I mean, in the developed world, for example, whenever we discuss digital gender divide, it's also a lot of discussion about, in general, access for women to internet or to digital technology, digital devices. However, in this particular study, we really look more into the European context and into the ICT specialist jobs as such. And you will see in the study that indeed ICT services, as one way how to look at the ICT sector, the companies that provide ICT services is a sector that really is one of the leading sectors in the European economy. I believe it's fourth sector in terms of its size in employment, and it was one of the sectors that has been creating a lot of new jobs. It was the fastest growing sector in terms of job creation in the EU during the last years. And of course, there was an impact of COVID-19 crisis where if we look backwards, the year 2020 proved to be a year when the largest number of new ICT jobs have been created compared to the whole period for which we have data since 2004. So in the 2020 and COVID-19 crisis had a major, in a way, positive impact for the sector and for ICT workforce employment. Really, a lot of new jobs have appeared. And then in the study, I'll move more to talk about the ICT specialists. And I wanted to right away clarify that ICT specialist is not the same as ICT sector. ICT sector would be the companies providing ICT services as their main activity, while ICT specialists can in principle be employed in any company. And in a way, the volume of ICT specialists in an economy represents how digitalized are every single company, because then every single company might need either data specialists or data designers or digital advertisers, which would all fall under the domain of ICT specialists. So I already went into a little bit defining what actually ICT specialists are. And in the study, we used the methodology widely used internationally by European Union institutions and the OECD, where ICT specialists include such types of jobs as ICT service managers, as ICT professionals, which can include different types of professionals whose main purpose is working with ICT technology. This also includes ICT technicians and ICT installers and services. So whenever in the study, when you will see we talk about ICT specialists, these are the type of specialists that we talk about, no matter if they work in an ICT company, in an engineering company, or in a government institution. So you have seen the slides already from the introduction by Žydrūnė, and we do see that in the last years, there has been a rapid growth or really fast growth of the number of ICT specialists working in such roles in Europe. And taking the past trends, in this study, we make projections how this will look like in the future in the coming 5 years. And you will see indeed that in almost every big country, you would look like those especially who employ the most of ICT specialists like Germany, France, but also, as Žydrūnė mentioned, Nordic-Baltic region, you would see a really rapid increase in the number of ICT specialists working in that field, in such occupations. And then we also can look a little bit differently and see how important are, or how sizable the share of ICT specialists is in the overall economy. And there you would see quite big differences across countries. If you start looking from, for example, Finland, which currently seems to have in 2020 the largest share of a bit more than 7.5% of all the workers to be considered as ICT specialists. And in European Union, if you look at the countries more towards the end of the list, so in the Greece, it would probably be almost 3 to 4 times less the share of ICT specialists in employment. So it shows that there are really countries with a lot of ICT specialists already throughout the economy, and really Nordic-Baltic countries and economies in that region are the ones that are the leading economies in Europe. I would say you will see that Finland, Sweden, Estonia are the top 3, but also Denmark is quite at the front end of the list. And the growth will continue even in those economies who already have a lot of ICT specialists. And then we go back to the discussion of the gender gap. And there, as mentioned also by Žydrūnė, and here you see more details and even further details you can find in this study, is that the share of women among this growing number and growing proportion of ICT specialists is still relatively modest. It's a bit larger in Nordic-Baltic region compared to the EU27, but overall it's around only 1 in 4 of the ICT specialists in Europe is a female. And of course, this is a concern and that's a limitation, and that's a little bit what we are trying to address and discuss both in the study and in the conference. And though, as mentioned before, the growth has been relatively limited on average, if you see, for example, in the EU or Nordic-Baltic region, there are countries that really seem to be able to make progress. And I think this is one of main positive messages I would take on top of what has been already said, that if you look at Austria, if you maybe look at Croatia, Lithuania as well, there seems to have been already an increase in the last few years. And this, if the trend continues, would see a relatively faster growth of the share of women among ICT specialists in these economies. And if the examples of or the lessons learned or the systems deployed in those countries can be transferred or shared broader across the broader range of countries, then really the change could accelerate, hopefully. But this transition from only a few countries making it happen to a broader range of countries still needs to happen, it seems so. And then we try to, in the study, look a little bit on who are the ICT specialists, where do they come from, where do they work? And the next slide I'm showing to you is showing the sectors who employ the largest number of ICT specialists. As I mentioned in the introduction of the presentation, ICT specialists are not the same as an ICT sector. And even though, as you see in the slide, information and communication, the ICT sector as such, really employs the largest proportion from all the sectors of the ICT specialists. They are not by far the only one. And you will see a long range of other sectors that need ICT specialists, and they employ ICT specialists, including a lot the manufacturing sector, but also public administration, services, construction, and trade. So really every single sector could benefit likely from employment of ICT specialists and subsequently of deploying more of digital technologies in their everyday work. We may look at ICT workforce from a different angle as well. And this angle would be, what is the background of these ICT specialists? So what kind of education have they acquired, and in which field, which is their main field of specialization? And here you will see that again, ICT specialist does not equal a person with an ICT education. It would be only around 30% of all ICT specialists who would declare in Europe to have an ICT background. The others may have an engineering background, business administration or similar background, natural sciences, even arts and humanities. So you may be an ICT specialist very well with a different than an ICT background. Of course, you need the skills for your particular job, and very likely you would need certain amount of training in ICT technologies. But I think another very important message that I would like to pass that comes out of the study is that you don't need to finish an ICT program to be an ICT specialist. And this is evident from this slide. And this also differs across countries. And you will see that there are indeed countries where it would seem that ICT education would be an important or rather more restricted pathway into ICT jobs. But if we really look at countries with a large number of ICT specialists, that would, for example, stand out in Sweden. I think it would be a very good example. In the country, you would find a really large number of ICT specialists, but conversely, you would find a very small number of those ICT specialists who would have an ICT background. So really, part of the success of Sweden, if we look to this type of data, would be that having multiple pathways and multiple ways to enter the profession, the ICT profession, no matter whether you really finished a very specialized program or there are more diverse programs available, or even maybe retraining or industry related training, or even within company career pathways. I think this would open up a lot both possibilities for more diverse workforce, including women, to enter an ICT specialist profession, but also allow businesses themselves to acquire more diverse workforce and more diverse sets of skills. And then we go towards now a little bit the end of the presentation, and we try to look how much what I have told that ICT field as a study field is not the only and a single most important pathway into ICT profession. What happens with this field? And here we see that, again, the list of countries is a bit different, but more or less countries that have the largest number of ICT specialists also have more or less a quite large number of ICT graduates. And this graduate number in some countries like Italy is really growing very fast. But again, then if we look into the Nordic-Baltic region, I think it may give a little bit different story, where again, as the Swedish example have shown, that maybe certain regions or certain countries do not need, or maybe even it's not necessarily useful to rely exclusively on an ICT field to really prepare and have a diverse and large ICT workforce. But the study is, the number of students is growing every year, and it seems that it will continue in the future, at least as the projections from this study are showing. And again, the story has been already mentioned before, that nevertheless, the number of women, even in the most current years of graduation among ICT specialists, is lacking. And that's another, in a way, call that we need to think of different pathways into ICT profession. Of course, we need to ensure that there is a larger number of women in technology fields of study and education systems in ICT field, but similarly, as similar figures you would find also in engineering field, but it is likely to be insufficient, particularly as the field has to grow, and already there is a challenge to ensure that there is a sufficient number of students accessing the study programs, and there is the capacity to teach them. So there is, in a way, a double challenge, which makes probably quite difficult to really more rapidly enlarge the share of women in such programs, in ICT programs and other tech-related programs. So to really a little bit sum up what I was trying to show, to give a very high-level overview of what we present and what we find in the study that you may and very much encourage to look at, is that ICT specialist is becoming more and more and really a key part of the economies of European countries, and it is growing still very rapidly. And of course, as everybody knows, there are really significant gender gaps, even that concerns the most recent graduates, or those who graduate, let's say, this year or last year. And the gaps are closing very slowly. And of course, there are reasons why this is so, and it's not an easy challenge to really increase the speed for reducing the gender gap. And nevertheless, even if the situation with the education system would improve, an important point to make is that the total number of workers in the ICT field, which are between 8 and 9 million, is so large that even if the number of graduates between women and men would be equalized, so the parity would be achieved, still the impact in the field, in the whole economy, would take a long time to be seen. And therefore, really, there would be a call to look at alternative pathways to complement the education pathway, really to make the transition faster. And as has been shown by the study, and which what I have tried to show during the presentation, these pathways do exist, and they may range from different study fields to other pathways. So I think this is the main message I would like to transit. And there are, of course, good examples that can be found to further learn from. And all this and more you can find in this study. Thank you very much for your attention. And I don't know if Ulla or anyone has any questions. I'm here. I'm very happy to answer those.
Thank you very much, Mantas. Yes, there are some questions as well as I have a few. But just starting with those alternative pathways, right? You have mentioned a number of times about those for women to get into ICT jobs. Can you just tell us a bit more on what kind of alternative paths there are? What do you have in mind?
So certainly, and I think this is a very interesting topic that may also deserve further exploration. A very starting point is already what I have touched a little bit upon in the presentation, is that at the very beginning, ICT specialist jobs are not only for ICT graduates. So that's the very first message, that you can really have a much more diverse educational background for becoming an ICT specialist. And ICT specialist jobs are very many and very diverse, and they do require diverse skill sets. And I think this diversity and the diversity of the skills needs should be represented by the diversity of the backgrounds of the people who access. So the very first thing is of course, the much more diverse educational pathways need to be kept in mind. But of course, again, the education system takes a long time to have an impact on the real world. So I think what has been done in different Nordic-Baltic countries, what we cover in the report, are quite a number of examples where either industry, non-governmental organizations, even or public sector can try to find or to develop pathways for people with a different background to access these jobs and satisfy the demand from the company side. So one simple example, of course, would be a retraining for people who are re-entering the labor market, for example, after maternity leave, or who return from foreign countries, or migrants, if you think so. We have the retraining pathway. You may have a career pathway within a company, where a company seeing that they need with time more and more ICT specialists, they do identify people who are not yet in ICT positions and may not be with an ICT background, but whose profile could benefit the company and the foreseen positions. And therefore the company prepares the pathways internally for those people really to access the jobs. Of course, then you can have non-formal education systems. You can have, let's say, mentoring programs like we have in Women Go Tech. You have other inspirational and supportive services. So there are many examples and multiple pathways available. And within this study, we cover quite a few, not exhaustively, quite a few of those. And yeah, I think these are some of them, and there are many more, and really thinking about how people can get into the roles, or how roles could find the suitable talent. I think this is much beyond the ICT field in a vocational or higher education.
Thank you for such an extensive explanation, Mantas. But if then we're coming back a bit to all of the growth estimations, right, that you showed us. Well, how likely actually it is that these projections will come true? How realistic are they?
So, excellent question. Thank you for that. Projections are based on past trends. So what has happened in the recent past during the last 5 to 10 years, this is what we project and the study will happen in the coming years. So the projections are the most likely scenario. It is always what has happened in the past. It is most likely this will continue happening in the future. But it doesn't mean that it will happen, certainly. And what I have tried also to mention in the presentation, that there are countries, there are not large in number, but there are countries who seem to be able to make the transition to a better gender parity in the ICT field faster. And if the efforts that are currently done at country level or at cross-country level are more fruitful, or they take more, let's say, speed in really helping countries to transfer this good experience or adopt interesting and effective models, then hopefully the projections will not come true.
All right, and maybe the last question, if there is no one in the audience who still have some of those in mind, why is there such a huge difference in number of people studying ICT in different countries? Let's take Italy and Nordics, for example. Like it's a huge difference, right? Why?
Absolutely. It's one of, I think, surprising in part findings of this study. What I would say, looking really from the ICT perspective, what we touched upon in the study, and we take the example of Sweden. In Sweden, a very large proportion of persons who are working as ICT specialists, they are coming from engineering background. This would suggest that in Swedish case, there may be a very effective and broad range and attractive engineering study field, study domain it may be related also to industrial background in Sweden. Maybe there are a lot of companies, and then there are a lot of universities who provide engineering courses. But that would indicate that in the Swedish case, for example, really there is a very alternative, I would mention again, an alternative way, an alternative maybe skill set even, which is required for the companies, for the economy, and to which education system has adjusted or historically co-developed. So that would probably be one of the examples, but for sure it would deserve much more detailed analysis of a country by country. But I think Sweden in this regard is a particularly interesting case.
Thank you very much. Thank you for presenting this study and sharing your insights. I just want to let everybody know that Mantas will be a moderator in our panel discussion that will follow in the third part of this conference. We will discuss about future of gender diversity in tech. And of course, I believe that most of you are now thinking where to find the study and where to read full size of it. So I really invite you to visit womengotech.lt website, where just in a few hours we will upload the study and you will be able to download it and to read it through. And of course, contact Mantas or any of Women Go Tech team to find more details or just get your answers to the questions if you'll have any. So coming up next, we have a break, a 20-minute break for a cup of coffee or a glass of water. And right after the break, we will have 3 presentations of different initiatives from Baltic states, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. The initiatives that work on gender diversity topics. Unfortunately, we will not have Helena from Denmark. She will not be she's not able to join us today, but we're looking forward to start with Yolanda from Women Go Tech right after the break. So stay tuned and come back in 3:30. And so we're back. Welcome to the second part of our conference. And with no further ado, I want to invite and say hi to Jolanta Jurgaitytė, who is a board member here at Women Go Tech. And Jolanta will talk today about how mentorship contributes to closing gender gap in tech. Hello, Jolanta.
Hi, Ula. Hi, everyone. Happy to be part of this event. As Ula just presented, I'm Jolanta Jurgaitytė. I'm board member at Women Go Tech, and I'm very happy to be part of this event. And I'm also happy to share that I've been part of Women Go Tech for the past 5 years, so the full journey of our organization. So where did we start 5 years ago? As some of you might know, Women Go Tech started with 2 passionate co-founders, Žydrūnė Vitaitė and Paulius Vertelka. I think both of them are also part of this event today. And a few other people from their network, myself included, who believed in the mission to bring more talent to tech and volunteered our time and ideas that resulted in a few hundred of applications, around 40 selected mentees paired with mentors for the first 6 months on a journey with a lot of first times and learnings. That was our first season. Where are we now, 5 years down the line? A few weeks ago, we closed our 5th season, and that already was run by a talented team, Ula included, working every day to make sure that our program is even better, more scalable, effective, that we create even more impact locally and regionally. We received around 1,000 of applications and selected 260 mentees in Lithuania only, and also kicked off in Latvia for the first time with around similar amount of mentees. We paired them with hundreds of mentors who joined, many of them for the first time Women Go Tech, but also we are super honored to see mentors who joined us 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and even for the 5th season, as well as dozens of companies and organizations who partnered with us this year and the previous years to make this positive change in the tech industry possible. All of that, and additionally, an even bigger community of tens of thousands of people that we reached through our additional programs like Discover Tech and other initiatives in order to educate about tech industry opportunities within it and encourage to take the first steps. So that's a lot of things accomplished within the 5 years with a very small but powerful team. So what is the success recipe here? I personally believe that there are few elements, but the mentorship is at the core of it. And that's also the topic that I have today, right? Why mentorship is helping to bridge the gap. So why mentorship? Because change, especially if we talk about change among less represented groups, for example, women in tech industry, requires individualized approach. And not only individualized approach to learning hard skills and new soft skills, but also individualized approach to understand what is best for me if I am eager to enter tech world, where to start, with whom and how to connect, how to work on and with myself to accelerate and succeed, and also how to continue the journey of growth if I'm already 1 or 2 feet in the tech industry, as that's also not always easy and smooth ride. And in this case, mentorship can provide this personalized approach that comes from building the qualitative, in-depth, trust-based relationship between mentee and mentor. And mentors who can ask the right questions, who can give an advice, who've potentially been there, done that, or even if they are not coming with exact similar experiences, they can then connect with the right people, sponsor you, and also challenge if and when needed you. And this is far beyond knowledge and hence is far more powerful learning tool. And that's also from my experience working in HR field for more than 10 years, and learning being a really crucial part of helping companies and organizations grow and succeed, as well as people within those organizations. And that's also not only me with my HR background, as well as me being part of Women Go Tech team and our mission talking, but that's also the voice of our participants. A few weeks ago in the same closing event that I've referred already, we did ask our participants, what did you enjoy the most while being part of this program? And most of the responses said, my mentor. To be precise, my amazing mentor, my great mentor, thanks to my mentor, and similar. So we really see that people value this learning opportunity and tool. Secondly, as also shared before, more and more mentors are joining, and more mentors are remaining with Women Go Tech over the years. That also does speak to the fact that tech industry experts believe in the impact of mentorship and value investing their time and resources and helping other people to succeed with their help and guidance, and also learning a thing or two, sometimes maybe more, along the way themselves. And finally, the stories also speak for themselves. We have just finished our 5th season. But we already see that from this year only, from this season only, from those 260 mentees that we selected in Lithuania, we already have the success rate of more than 50%, meaning that more than half of our participants throughout the first 6 months already made a change in their career into tech world or within tech world if they're already were starting on their own. And we expect even more changes and even more of these stories to come in the next 6 months as our participants capitalize on the benefits and experience of our program. So it's only the beginning, and we just see how many more changes are coming along the way in the long run. So is that all? That's the question, right? Is that all to make the change and success? I truly believe that engine runs not only on fuel. Additional oils are needed. I'm not a car expert, so I don't know which ones, but if we talk about learning, I am a bit better expert. So if the change story is an engine and the mentorship is the fuel, we have also additional support and power coming through other elements of Women Go Tech program. Those being, firstly, our content that helps to build and strengthen the good baseline knowledge of our participants, which is also important. Knowledge is still important and needed in tech world. And the second one is the power of being together with like-minded people. That's our community. All these 3 elements, mentorship, content, and community, that's what makes the difference. That's what makes Women Go Tech mission and ambition to make the world a better place, and especially for women in tech, possible. And I also hope that maybe you already experienced it yourself, being one way or the other part of our program or partnering with our program, or you might experience this magic with us in the future. And we are more than happy to share more of our practices and experiences to make it possible cross-border and in not only in our regions, but also worldwide. That's it from my side. Thank you. Maybe some questions.
Thank you, Jolanta, for introducing everyone to Women Go Tech. Actually, well, at least from my perspective, mentorship is getting more and more popular these days in a lot of contexts, right? Yeah. Could you please share, do you have any specific examples in mind of success stories that this program had during the years? Those mentorship couples, right? Mentor and mentees. Were there any that stick to your head?
I don't know if I need to call out the names, but what I do know, there are lots of these interesting stories where, well, our program is for 6 months, and we do have these amazing people reaching out to say for us that, hey, like even the program finished, but we continue to work together, right, outside of the program barriers, which is, I think, also like a great success story, and also like something we should be proud of, that we connect the people for the program, you know, with our resources, but it is far beyond what we are doing or for how long we are doing. So that's, I think, one of those call outs. Of course, there are a bunch of stories actually where mentors help to find those first steps, so either internships or jobs for their mentees, and quite a significant percentage of those were maybe within their own organizations. So it is kind of a win-win, of course, situation. We don't say that it's the recruitment channel, but it can be, of course, these you know, kind of capitalizing on these networks and connections and relationships. So that's also something that we regularly hear. Yeah, so a lot of amazing experiences, and as I said, like, I think whenever we ask feedback for our participants, most what we hear from mentees that they are really excited about their mentors, and also most often when we connect to the mentors, that's also what they like the most, like actually helping and making a change in their mentees' lives. So there are lots of these stories that we have.
And well, at least from what I hear, it all sounds very inspiring and smooth. But are there any challenges along the way for mentees to enter, or women in general, not necessarily mentees, to enter ICT guided by mentors?
Yeah, sure. It's not a smooth ride, right? Like, one also thing that I think we learned over the years, and of course we talk about these change stories and success stories and people entering the market, but also especially when we started, one of the ideas and the part of the kind of purpose was also to help people who want to you know, enter tech, get more knowledge, get more equipped, but also realize that maybe that's not for them. And we also seen a lot of these stories, luckily way less than the stories that actually enter in tech. But that's also where I think what I was telling before, that power of mentorship is also figuring out if it's for you and what is for you, and not only actually making the steps into tech, but like those early decision making stages, super important. So I think that's one of the aspects that not necessarily goes smooth, at least in our as women good tech organizations you know, eyes, because of course we would love everyone probably to enter, knowing how many tech talents we need. The other aspect is that, of course, I mentioned that, you know, mentorship to be successful, that the relationship is super important. And yeah, we all know, working probably in different jobs for many years, that not all relationships are always smooth, and it's all about, you know, building the trust and connecting with the right person. And with the scale, as we, for example, in Women Go Tech scale so fast and have more and more participants and mentors, it's sometimes harder, especially remotely, to find these right matches that would succeed. So sometimes we just also get the feedback like, hey, we don't connect, or that I don't think that that's the right profile for me to work with. So that's also one of the challenges where we look, okay, what can we do? Do we find another person? Do we have another tools to help these people to succeed and enter still, or how to get supported, you know, in the next steps?
I have the very last question. It actually came from the audience. Jolanta, yeah. What do you reckon the success rate for Women Go Tech Season 6 will be?
Wow, so
challenging.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I before mentioned that we have already above 50%, but it's not at the end. I measure the success also the rate 1 year past the mentorship program is over, because as I mentioned, the change takes also time. So if now we already have 50 and we just finished the season, so imagine in the next 1 year, I really expect that even from season 5, we are aiming towards 75% of the rate of our participants actually entering. And that's for still like season 5, but just in 1 year. So I would be super happy to have the same kind of percentage and rate for the 6th season, if I may be honest. Of course, I know that usually when you grow, you have more ambitious. But as I mentioned before, some people along the way realize that tech is not for them. And if we also had a part in that, like a positive part in this realization, I also take it as a win, even if it does not serve good for our numbers. But I think that we also serve a good purpose, for the community and those participants as well. Hence, it's probably never 100.
That's a great response, Yolanda. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Ola. Thank you, everyone.
And now we're actually moving to a second initiative, to Eva Kristina Ponomariov, who is a founder and CEO of Future Heroes and founder of Switch. So we're moving to Estonia now and saying hi to Eva Kristina.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be at this very important conference on this topic at this very turbulent time. And I think I would like to start with the number. That is very significant, I think, that because the number is 207. I will be 207 when the gender gap closes. Can you imagine the time? And it's according to the World Economic Forum's gender gap calculator. And there are more this kind of very significant numbers, and I suggest you to take a look at it. But there's another number I want to share with you, and that's 5%. This is the percentage of female CEOs in Estonia. Mind you that women make up 52% of the total population in Europe. So this is the context where I started 5 years ago in entrepreneurship and my journey that took me to Future Heroes. So there's a lot of room for expansion in entrepreneurship, in leadership for all women. And a lot more dialogue also to see how we can mind the gap and make it much so that I don't need 207, which is way. Coming back to women in tech, I think it matters more than ever, and especially I think in COVID times, now that we're accelerated this journey from knowing that we can access everything and travel safely to being confined between four walls. And suddenly we had to reinvent ourselves, to work differently, to live differently, and also to be able to do business differently. So it's a great exercise in patience, still is, I believe, and a great exercise in creativity. And that has also quite a bit changed the trajectory for Future Heroes, who we are today and what we plan for the future. But if you change the slide, I'll talk about now, after the context, why me? So for me, this entrepreneurship journey started 5 years ago. And the reason, first and foremost, was my daughter, who is on the picture. With a very simple question from her side. She was 15 when she wanted to make something of a business after competing on a lemonade day competition. And her friends said to me, so what do we do? Do we go to school? I said, sure, if you have a program, absolutely. When they realized quite quickly that they still lack the skills, they lack the mentors, they lack the role models. And most importantly, I think role models, because as a kid, you want to relate to someone like you. And frankly, I didn't see that many women at the time also what I was surrounded with, because I was working at the time with a lot of startups, and I was investing a lot of time into their leadership. And guess what? How many of them were women in their leadership of these high growth startups across the Baltics? And I was also working with Lithuanian startups. So the situation in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania wasn't that different from each other. It was still remarkable how small was the percentage of women CEOs. So I thought, what if I seize the opportunity nevertheless and do something for my daughter and her friends, and using the model of a typical startup accelerator to see if this applies to girls with an idea who want to execute this idea, to make their entrepreneurial dream a reality. So as every, I believe, startup entrepreneur, I mean, you can use a garage. In my case, we use the kitchen to sit down with my daughter, with her friends, and say, okay, so what do we lack? What do you need to make this possible? Your dream with, you know, all the things you can imagine. So we put down all the skills they needed. We thought of what the mentor should look and feel like for them. We thought about who would inspire them. And also we thought, so what if, as we do it, we make it international from the start, so they could also learn the English while doing it and communicating with girls from other countries. So there's a lot of dreams that we put on paper. And this is how the prototype actually for the Future Heroes concept was born. And with this concept, I went to my network of the same male, mostly entrepreneurs, and to my network of good friends, and I said, would you support it? Would you be able to be part of it as a mentor, as a speaker, as a friend, as an advisor? And luckily, as with ideas, the more you talk to people, the more you expand on the actual idea to take shape, to become something real. So fast forward 250 girls later, expanding to Latvia, hopefully to Lithuania this year, because we're in the negotiation. So I'm super excited if this becomes a reality as well. You know, we never thought that we would get out of the kitchen table in Estonia to the Baltics, and hopefully, and actually most likely, fast beyond the country borders. And this is also why the slogan of Future Heroes is Sisterhood Without Borders, because that's also something what was mentioned before, that the mentorship is a connection, right? But the connections today, I mean, they are global. And here again, we come back to tech, connecting the dots on so many levels of supporting each other, on encouraging everyone to be part of it. So the next slide, I'll talk about why you, because it's also, that's my daughter now a bit later. She's 19 now. She has her own business venture, a new one, not the one she created as part of the program, but a new one that focuses on health and fitness. But when we asked in the beginning of the program from the girls, why you? We got so many different answers. But what we wanted to make sure was that the girls would be learning by doing, that it wouldn't be just about reading and thinking about it, but actually making the mistakes, enjoying, you know, their first joy of the first client, being frustrated about maybe not getting the second client, and then again talking to their mentor and feeling that there's so much more they can do, only, you know, being 4 girls in a team. And now that my daughter was going through the program, she's actually become a big advisor for me moving forward, because she is a young entrepreneur. And who's better to advise me than someone who has gone through it herself for the first time and can advise others through experience rather than through theory. And also, I think that what makes a difference in this case is these girls, all these 250 girls, they not only dream big, but they got to act big. And that's a massive difference. Then it's not about dreaming, it's about taking this everything into action. And what also matters is what one of the girls told me in the program. She said, stop saying, what do you want to become when you grow up? You know, usually parents ask that. Rather ask, what do you want to do right now? What do you want to change? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to fix? I mean, there are massive number of problems you want to fix or causes you care about. And you don't need to be 30, 50, 60 to do that. You can be 15. And these girls are examples, real life examples that you can be an entrepreneur at 15 and you can be confident about what you're doing. And funnily enough, these girls became triggers to their moms and big sisters to do the same, or maybe grandmothers as well, because I've heard many stories now that what has been like an amplifier effect. And if I talk about why now, which is the next slide, then here you see the team behind Future Heroes. They're all young girls who are making this program, who are helping this program to expand to other countries, and with whom we have won numerous awards from Estonia, from abroad. And lastly, actually, because of tech, we won the World Summit Award for the digital innovation because of turning this program around to be a hybrid one, so that it would be also accessible in different ways. So it's not about a physical accelerator program any longer. And that's also how we created Switch, another initiative, again, a completely online version where we talk to the moms and the grandmothers and brothers and sisters about how can they turn around. Wherever they are, they can still make a switch in their career, in the way that they're doing business, in the way that they want to grow in the future. So I never thought that, after being around my kitchen table with my daughter and her friends, and some of them are on this picture actually, come to think of it, that this is where we are today, from 5 years from now. And this is that we are not in one country, and that we are created a lot of entrepreneurs who are in succession creating more entrepreneurs when talking to their friends and when expanding their knowledge and their mentorship, because they are mentors themselves already today. So I can't underestimate ever the importance of, yes, community, what was already mentioned, and the importance of daring. But for that, you need to have a very safe environment. And last but not least, I think that tech is in that sense an interesting thing, that if you have an idea and you have a bit of friends and family, tech will just scale it if you're persistent enough. So in that sense, I think it's also never been easier to make change possible, to create impact. And therefore, as we only have 5% of CEOs, female CEOs today in Estonia, I would hope that we can, just by making a succession of little steps, great change happen. So I hope that gave a good short overview about how we did it and what we plan in the future. And I'm happy to get the questions as well.
Thank you very much, Christina. It was a very, very interesting story. And of course, at least I have some questions, and we'll take a look at the questions from the audience. But well, I am really interested in, can you share any of the examples of those young entrepreneurs who actually tried or even succeeded to build their ideas, bring their ideas to life?
Oh, there are so many to name. And I think it's also incredibly relevant topics. For example, the first year we had one project that was focused on mental health. So they went to schools to advocate with actual psychologists from the University of Tartu, and also with a number of organizations on the public sector side, as well as NGOs. So what, in the end, they received an award from the president for the most impactful youth project in the country, because they were able to connect the dots all over Estonia, not just one city at a time, but they really used, again, tech to be able to scale their mission. And they even made a film, and they used even dance format to amplify the message through different mediums to get the attention of youth. That's maybe one example. The second, maybe what I can say, the most relevant from previous years was Fridays for Future. I bet you know the movement well. So the girl in Estonia who started it as part of when being in the program. So it's a lot to do with not always businesses per se, but it's all to do with causes you care about and where you can create impact, and where you have also a lot of partners on board to help amplify. But of course, there have been purely business as well, even though always very conscious of the planet and very conscious of the way of doing business, because that's always also a core pillar, let's say, for future heroes. That's why we name it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
That there's a different, bigger impact, not just starting a business.
Exactly. And actually, we got one question from the audience, and I see that you already started talking about it a bit, so touched upon it. But what kind of fields of business are your girls mostly interested in?
I think it's whatever happens around us is also something that I can see resonates with the girls. So it's definitely a lot about climate change. I mean, there's a lot of projects that deal with that from one way or the other. There's a lot about mental health, a lot of that, because I see this is, and with COVID, I believe, unfortunately, this problem is getting more traction than ever. So there's a lot of that. But again, I believe that if the youth will help each other, it will be much more useful than perhaps having this projects where somebody else is talking to youth from a different perspective, maybe not from experience.
Thank you very much for being with us here today, Eva Kristina.
Thank you very much for inviting.
Thank you. And actually, I'm very excited to introduce you to the third third person from Latvia this time, Lina Marta Sarma. She's a co-creator at Big Tech Girls, and Lina Marta has prepared a story for us of how do they empower women in tech there in Latvia. Hello, Lina, and welcome.
Hello, really lovely to be here. It was a really wonderful presentation before us. I know future heroes, and it was really inspiring, actually. I am Lina. I'm the co-creator of Riga Tech Girls, and I will share our story of what are the things that we do right here in Latvia. And similarly to Eva, I will start with a couple of numbers and a couple of ideas and information of how we started and what's the reasoning behind our organization. So based on the Ministry of Economics in Latvia and on their data, until 2025, we will lack over 20,000 employees in IT. That is just in Latvia, and that is if nothing actually changes. As we know, only 1% of women in Latvia are actually currently employed in IT, which is a very small number considering the large numbers that we have to fill in. So we are here to provide equal opportunities for anyone and everyone who wants to become and be a part of the IT. What we want to share is that work in IT is important. It is changing the environment, it's changing the country around us, and it is developing the country. Women are at least 50% of our population. So technically, if women do better, the society does better as a whole. We also want to stress that work in IT is suited for women. Along with other skills, it's also important to have creativity and social skills within the IT environment. Work in IT is also elastic and it's possible to make a balance, especially a work and home life balance. We also stress that it's demanded and well paid, and we encourage women to become a part of it because it creates them to be more independent. So diversity matters. It matters not only to women as a society, but as for businesses and societies as a whole, because diverse teams create more creative solutions, create a wider human resource market, and most importantly, create solutions that suit for everyone, not only the selected few. So women and girls in IT is not just about women and girls. We want women to become from consumers to tech creators, to become a part of creating the technology products, influence them, and come up with such products and companies and ideas that are important for our society and that make our society better. So at Riga Tech Girls, we empower women and girls to be architects of the future. We are the first community in Latvia aimed at educating and inspiring women and girls in IT, and we do this through various events. So firstly, we encourage to start a career in IT. We aim to be the first step for women to enter a career in IT and to try things out. We are overall a movement. We are a social movement that aims to inspire, teach, and motivate. We aim to create a safe space, a safe environment for everyone to learn here and feel welcome and supported. And also, as importantly, we want to change the society's stereotypes. We want women to see a career in IT as their top choice in Latvia and across the region. We want them to become the tech creators and influence the products and companies that are being built within this region and the technology that is being built. And obviously, we need men to be a part of this and to create this change as well. So regarding the encouragement, we do these things, we encourage women and girls through various activities, starting from getting inspired, getting involved in IT, becoming a part of the IT, and then touching women by our community and by our role models. We organize a large amount of events throughout the year, catered through various interest groups and various women, and most importantly, within the last years and within this very interesting time of the pandemic. Our goal is to touch not only the women in the biggest cities, but also aim to inform them and reach them regionally across the smaller cities and the villages across Latvia. So regarding the getting inspired, we aim to inspire women to see IT as a potential field for them and create role models for them. We do this through meetups, organizing various meetups throughout the year and inviting speakers who share their professions, and inviting speakers from IT fields and different IT professions who would share their specific professions and how they got to be where they are. We also, for the third year in a row, participate and organize our own Women in Tech stage at the RigaCom conference, where we invite female speakers and female leaders to share their experiences in working and leading teams in IT companies and running their own IT businesses. We invite women to get involved, to try out things in programming. So we organize various workshops throughout the year to invite women to, and girls with the most recently, to try things out in programming and to try different programming languages and build their own applications and games and see what are the different possibilities across the fields of IT and programming. We also organize our Discover Tech program, who for the second year in a row has invited more than 3,000 women to listen and learn about and getting inspired about the possibilities of IT. Throughout this Discover Tech program, we invite various female and male speakers from the fields of IT and try to kind of give an overall view of the various possibilities of engineering and IT fields that are out there, and most importantly, try to touch upon the ideas of how to kickstart a career in IT, and what will be the key things of how to get there, and what are the important things to look into. With our partners Accenture, we also invite women to participate in coding boot camps, where they, in a safe environment, can kickstart their career as developers in various fields. As with our latest program, Work in Tech, we also provide the support for a select few women to learn in an IT support online course provided by Google and Coursera. This is an opportunity for them to learn and to have this support from us and the professionals in IT support and IT operations fields, and kickstart their career in this specific profession. We also invite them to become a part of it. So we organize specific workshops catered for creating your own e-commerce businesses and honing your digital marketing skills. But we also provide a mentorship program, which is catered for the mentees who wish to and know the career that they want to kickstart, or then they know a profession that they want to either enter or have a step forward within it. And we match them with the professionals, mentors that would help them to do this, support them throughout their way, and help them find these positions and count their interview skills, CV skills, and interview questions, and try to get them to where they want to be and support them and give them a hand forward. We also organize hackathons yearly, or Women in Tech hackathons in Latvia, together with our partners and supporters, that do provide the opportunity for women to create and work on their own ideas in teams. And we inspire them and try to invite them to become more informed and get more involved in the startup community. We have a large community and a large online community. We have over 10,000 members in Facebook, over 3,000 in our Facebook community and Instagram. All of them sharing open job positions, sharing study opportunities, resources, and helping each other out, trying to support each other. And especially, like, we invite our partners to be there as well and support women and create this circular movement of each of those who step forward into the careers in IT, help the ones next in line, and try to push each other up. And we also want to stress that we do recognize the importance and the need to start early. As discussed and presented previously, it is really important to also encourage the girls that are in starting from the ages of 8 to also think about IT professions as theirs, and also think about engineering as a possibility for their careers and get excited about them. So we do organize summer schools, and we do participate and try to organize workshops with different kinds of school-aged kids to inspire them to also see engineering and IT as a potential field for them in the future. And we couldn't do this alone. So we, over the course of our activities and throughout the years, we have gathered a wide range of partnerships with our fellow companies and organizations that all help us to attract more women into the field in IT and help us support these programs and actually provide these job openings and job positions for entry-level developers and entry-level people within these larger companies in IT. And we are the key thing that we also want to stress is we are a team of volunteers, and we are a large team that each of us tries to push each other, support each other, and does a bit more towards creating this this organization to work. Throughout the last years, as I mentioned previously, we really recognized the need to expand regionally and talk and network with the women and the girls across the region of Latvia, not only within the capital city. So throughout the last years, we have expanded through our other regional cities, creating and giving birth to Liepāja Tech Girls, Vidzeme Tech Girls, and in the future to come other Tech Girls organizations too. This is us. So in case anyone wants to know more about what we do, this is our contact details, rigatechgirls@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. It looks like you're doing a lot of things there, and in Riga Tech Girls, so many activities. We have a question from audience. So which tech field attracts the most interest within Riga Tech Girls community?
Definitely front-end web development is the one that usually attracts the most interest. UI, UX, if that's regarding the professions, those are the fields that are most often seen as the most interesting, I think. Mostly, I think it's due to the fact that when starting out, when we do these like we provide them with the opportunity to try things out and to do these workshops, I think front end and UI and UX kind of give this first, for an entry level person, they seem more intuitive because you can see the results better in the beginning. Very often they can kind of like start with that and then realize that they're interested in something else, and they're interested into kind of like a more deeper field, and that could be something else. But very, very often when people start out and when women start out in our programs, that is the first, those are the first fields that they start getting interested into, and I think feel more safer with, because they can kind of like see the visual part and see the kind of human and social part more than in the other fields. Yeah.
And I actually, I think that we in Women Go Tech share very similar challenges with you. So for example, like there are quite a lot of women, so it's a huge interest, right? For them to join the programs and develop their skills, grow to tech. But at least from what we see, it goes down the hill at some point, right? So it's very important to keep the motivation high. How do you have the same challenge, and how do you approach it?
Yeah, we do. Obviously, with all programs, with some program, well, the larger the program and the more kind of informed the program, the easier it is to kind of lose people, because we don't have a relationship, like a one-to-one relationship with them. However, for the larger programs, for example, Discover Tech, that only gives you this opportunity to come to the lectures once a week and listen to them online. We provide quite a lot of leniency regarding time and the opportunity to watch them. So we kind of tell them that it's up to you, so you can always watch the recordings and kind of give them more time and more space to adjust to them. To the programs that require more work and more attention, and for those in which we actually provide this one-on-one support or provide help, almost like one-on-one. The first key thing that we do is we've started to create a more rigid evaluation process, where we ask the participants and ask the people who register for the program to have a kind of like a longer and extended application process. And in this way, we try to find those women and for them also kind of get this idea that it's going to take a bit of work and it's going to take a bit of patience. So if you have the patience to fill in this application, maybe you will get to the next stage and you will have this like kind of like a trial period. We always keep in mind that we try to make these programs also inclusive, and we take regards to the fact that some women might have families and small kids, and they want to do this while they're continuing to raise the kids and then enter the IT field maybe after a year. So we keep that in mind. We try to kind of create this balance in between having a more rigid evaluation process and also providing this opportunity for everyone. And additionally to that, we kind of try to check in with women and with the participants throughout the programs. So what we did in the Working Tech program worked very well, that we stressed on the fact that for the women to tell us if they are not going to participate, or if they feel like they're falling out, even if they feel like they're not going to do the program for the next 2 weeks because they have something else coming up, or a deadline in work, or maybe a family matter or something else. And we want them to tell us, so that we can provide this opportunity for firstly, if they cannot make it, then we can provide this opportunity for other women. And secondly, we know what's going on, and we're not going to expect them to be there, and we're not going to kind of exclude them from the program. And that has worked really, really well. And I feel like they feel this responsibility for other women, that we tell them, so if you cannot do it, please tell us, because there are other women waiting in line to also be on this program. And even if there weren't, it makes them feel more responsible, and they actually tell us, so, hey, I'm letting you know that for the next 2 weeks I have a deadline, I'm not going to be there. And it's really wonderful to see that they have this responsibility, and that has worked really well, that they've taken it more seriously, and they've taken the program and their responsibility for the program more seriously. And I think that kind of one-on-one and giving them the opportunity to understand that they're a part of this organization, they're a part of something bigger, and anything that they're taking and not using from the program, they're taking away from someone else who might be using it in a better scenario. And that kind of creates a better numbers actually, and better kind of more people who finish the programs. Yeah.
That sounds like a very great approach. Thank you very much, Lina. Thank you for being with us. And now we're moving on to the very third part of our conference, and I want to greet Mantas coming back to the stage, and he will continue with a panel discussion on the future of diversity in tech. So word over to him, and he will introduce all the panelists that we're gonna meet today.
Well, hello everyone again, and thank you very much, Ula, for giving the floor. So now we have one of the ending parts of this conference, a panel discussion with three very distinguished guests, and I'll try to help moderate the discussion with them. So we have today with us here Paulius Vertelka, Sigrid Hernes, and Paula Gold. I hope I expressed the names correctly. Otherwise, you can please correct me, and I'll try then to start one by one introducing them in more details. So first, I would like to talk to Paulus, who is actually who is working for Google, and he's a government affairs and public policy manager now at Google. But probably even more importantly, he is one of the co-founders of Women Go Tech quite a number of years ago now. So Paulus, I'd like, from what you have not so much heard, but firstly from your experience as one of the co-founders of Women Go Tech, I wanted to ask you a little bit of backward-looking questions. So what you have seen over the last these 5-6 years, what would be the main lesson that you have learned from working and setting and scaling this initiative, and what you think might be useful for others who might want to do something similar or learn something useful for what they do?
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Mantas, for the introduction. Yes, well, about 5 years ago, when we thought of pursuing this strategy of change in the tech industry, we really didn't have much clue of where we will end up, nor we had an imagination that Women Go Tech will get to be a huge community in the country, work with partners across borders, and really do a significant impact on the ground. So looking back, I think some of the key things that really got us locked into this mission was the fact that we ourselves had like a mission, which wasn't like, oh, let's do a mentorship program, but we really thought about it bigger. And it came down to like, let's make sure that we can empower talents to discover tech. And then at that time, we didn't realize that this will be, such a handful metric to have, but we said, in 5 years, we want to have 500 success stories achieved. We didn't know what it means in practice, but throughout the years and some of the grueling meetings with the teams, the executive team, the board team, solving all kinds of issues and having to answer some of the difficult questions or make difficult decisions, we always came back to say like, wait a minute, we have a mission and we have a metric. Let's not get on tangents. Let's not scale back because we won't make it. And we said ourselves, but we want to do it. And this is like, was probably one of the least seen or visible kind of goals outside the organization, but it was profoundly important when the difficult matters came to us. Then I think the second super important thing was that from the beginning, we committed to become or be a self-sustaining organization, meaning that Women Go Tech should not be going around and begging for money, saying, oh, we do this cute little project, please donate for us, and we'll go do things, great things. No, we made sure that we are measured, that we can measure our success, that we can provide deliverables to our partners, to the mentees, and make sure that there is like a financial logic behind it, right? That the partners are willing to support because they see clear benefit of it, not just because it's cute and nice. And the mentees are willing to participate, pay their participation fees and things like that, because they get something very tangible in return. And I really wish for any other NGO which might be dreaming to do something big and impactful, to really have clear goals, ambitious goals. Don't be afraid of all the ambiguity that might lie between you today and that goal later down the line. And then think of how to be, self-sustainable. Don't expect others to come and save you. Make sure you have something to offer and put on the table to keep afloat and deliver on your mission.
Thank you, Paulus. And just a quick follow-up question. Then you mentioned that you entered without really knowing where you are getting into, and now it's a little bit of an anniversary. It's a kind of 5-year anniversary. I wanted to ask now, looking now forward, what would be your expectation for the future? So I presume 500 now, it's not so much 500 success stories, not so much inspirational anymore, and you may want to look into something maybe bigger in the future. What is your expectation, and will then you again going to enter something that you are maybe not fully know?
Well, first of all, I think we achieved much more than we hoped for. And that it turned out that these 500 success stories, we're about to reach that number, right? We just need to let some of the fifth season mentees to settle down and get to that number, but we're confident we'll get there. But just to get to help you understand the scale of it, 500 success stories in 5 years, that's 50% of total female IT graduates from all universities in the country combined. So Women Go Tech is like half of what the higher education system is putting out in terms of female talent in tech. We didn't expect to be that big. And this is still kind of giving me goosebumps when I realize this. Okay, wow, we got to this point. So it's amazing. And, going forward, the biggest goal, and I think I always had this in mind, like, I want Women Go Tech to defeat itself. I want Women Go Tech to defeat its purpose for existence. I don't want this world to have a reason for Women Go Tech to exist. And it's Women Go Tech job to make that reason go obsolete. Of course, this is a long shot, and hopefully one day we'll look back at history and say like, oh, we used to have these funny organizations solving these issues. But really, when we think about more near-term future, I think my wish would be that NGOs like Women Go Tech would stop fixing systematic mistakes made by the education system. Because this is what we are. Education system did not deliver on empowering talents at the right time, at the right age. There was certain external factors that affected young individuals before they chose their career path or the field of education. Hence, we have to have Women Go Tech now kind of like covering and reversing what was not properly achieved or done when it was time to do so. So I would, in the more immediate future, I would hope that, it's no longer about fixing systems of education mistakes, but rather like an additional add-on to the industry and to the talents out there and helping them, reach new levels. And I think, the next step for Women Go Tech would be to start seeing Women Go Tech alumni achieving leadership positions in the industry. So we have a lovely, sizable, inspirational community of tech leaders that can lead the way and show the way for others, following right behind, and also, make the whole industry much better off with all this new talent, different perspectives, different ideas coming in, and in return, everybody much more happy and better off. Maybe I'll stop here because the wish list might get a bit too long.
Well, I really then wish that at least with the fixing the education system, Women Go Tech defeat the purpose, and then you may find new interesting purposes and goals in the as nearest future as possible. And let me now also talk a little bit to Sigrid Hernes, who is actually here representing Men on Economics, and who has an in-depth knowledge about the gender gap in entrepreneurship in the Nordic region. And she has worked on the topic and published a number of studies on this. So Sigrid, I wanted to ask on particular this aspect on gender gap and entrepreneurship, as you've done recently, also published a study in, I think in 2020, also related to COVID. Could you shortly introduce what you have found, and were there any particular things that were really surprising or unexpected for you in this study?
Yes, I will. Well, first, thank you for asking me to join this conference. Well, actually, so we wrote a report, last year on female entrepreneurship in the Nordics, but it's actually based on a study we did on female entrepreneurship in Norway in 2019. But where we found, of course, not surprising, that the share of female entrepreneurs is low, and we looked and investigated into the reasons and the measures that the Norwegian government could address. Whereas last year we were asked to do a much bigger study where we looked at all the Nordic countries, and where we wouldn't just look at the status and the reasons and the measures, but also where we would investigate the differences between the Nordic countries, and both to be able to see, are there any differences? And if so, and we found a few differences, what can be done, like those who are better than the other countries, what are they doing, and can we replicate that? Related to the conference today, we found that there are major and enduring differences in entrepreneurial activity between women and men in the Nordic countries and in all the Nordic countries. So even though, for instance, Finland was a bit better than the rest of us, it was just with a few percentage points. What is interesting is that these countries, like the Nordic countries, they're viewed as forerunners on gender equality and women labor force participation rate. But still, we're not there on entrepreneurs, and we also looked at tech entrepreneurs in this study, and we found the same thing there. We're not where we should be. For instance, and this is what as analysis we did, particularly for the Norwegian study, because we had that available data for that point. But what we did is that we looked at STEM subjects in high school. So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, and where technology is interesting here for this aspect. But we found that the gender gap, or the gender ratio in high school, is 50-50. There's just as many female students than male students that are doing STEM subjects. But then when we look kind of further along the line, with first of all at university, and then when they start working and when they become entrepreneurs, the share just keeps on falling. And in Norway, for instance, the share of female entrepreneurs that are in IT and tech is at that point 14%. So it goes from 50 to 14. So this is kind of called the leaky pipeline. But what happens, and why can't we attract women to stay on this course? So that was a very interesting, what we found that was also very related to tech. So there was a gender gap, but kind of what we also then tried to investigate in our study is what causes this gender gap. And we looked at many different factors. We investigated personal characteristics such as education, age, willingness to take risks, and stuff like that, but also external effects or external factors. With for instance, related to entrepreneurship, it's about the startup environment, social interaction, family, and family relations, and so on. And we found, and our study doesn't conclude where it's like this is the thing that causes the gender gap in entrepreneurship, because there's so many factors that are contributing. But we emphasize several factors that we believe are more important than others. And I want to mention two of them here, which we believe is especially relevant to women in tech. The first is access to role models. We believe, and there are studies that show that access to role models is important for entrepreneurship, and especially for women, access to role models of the same sex. So what we found is that women, they have less access to role models in smaller networks than their male counterparts. The second part is that, and well, in our report, we call it the entrepreneurial culture. We could also here call it kind of like the tech culture, because we believe it's also relevant here, but that the entrepreneurial culture is male dominated. And that actually makes it more difficult for women to succeed. And these are two, I believe, very important factors, that also something that society can do something about. Thank you.
Thank you, Sigrid. And just a quick follow-up question. I'm very curious about this role model. So did you find already any existing examples, or you may think that it's really missing for the moment, because we know from statistics that it's really few women, or there are already efforts really to somehow highlight the role models across countries? Were there anything that you found of interest in that particular direction?
So our findings with the role models was also one of our main conclusions of the report, and also one of the really like measures that we put forward that they should work on. And so what we see is that because you have such small networks and especially few role models, because there are not many female entrepreneurs, so there's not many female role models, and then there's this kind of opposite snowball effect, because you struggle with that. So what we recommended was that you would create a pan-Nordic role model program, because and to also do it not just in each country, but to do it like for all the Nordic countries together, because then you have a much bigger pool of potential role models to use, but also that to facilitate that kind of a program. We looked a bit into not necessarily like the network part, but a lot of like initiatives that are there for women. And this part then related to entrepreneurship. Of course, some of them are with tech, and there are a few, but we believe that a more joint cohesive effort to, and especially on the role models, that you're partnered up with someone who's done it before, who has extensive knowledge and can help to kind of get more women to choose to become entrepreneurs, and especially within tech.
Thank you, Sigrid. I think this proposal of yours of really pan-Nordic role model programs sounds something, at least for me, very interesting. So thank you for these insights. And also now let me talk shortly to also Paula Gold, who also has a very interesting background, I must say, when I found out, as she was studying animal science in Boston initially, then moving to work in music and entertainment industry in Los Angeles, and then going into more tech industry in Iceland, and then finally now opening a consultancy, an international consultancy firm with clients all over the world. So Paolo, with all this diverse experience, I know that you are really thinking a lot about diversity. And I wanted to really then to ask in that particular direction, do you think what we have been discussing today here in the panel and in the conference more broadly, of really finding ways to attract and get more women in tech, is this sufficient? Is it adequate for the diversity challenge in ICT and tech?
Yeah, I think it's a complex problem, right? Sigrid, your comments about role models and mentorship and broadening the pool of resources across the Nordics instead of just individual countries. That's obviously being in the smallest Nordic country. It just speaks deeply to me. It is something that I'm passionate about. It's one of the reasons that me and other women from this community here started Women Tech Iceland. And I think it takes a lot of different things. Here in Iceland, for example, we have not only private sector initiatives, but public sector initiatives. There is a requirement for the number of women that you have on boards. There's lots of different both legal and kind of moral and ethical initiatives that are taking place, and it takes constant reinforcement and constant advocacy. And just when you think that you've reached a level where you can kind of like breathe, something comes along, either that no one knew was happening or was hushed, and then it just opens up another can of worms. I think here in Iceland, there are a lot of women in tech. In fact, I think that we have like 3 or 4, maybe even 5 or 6 different women in tech organizations. Ours in particularly is designed to cater and encompass the entire community here, which specifically the immigrant community here, which has been invaluable in a small marketplace to kind of bring more people into tech and more diversity and inclusion into tech, more broadly than gender, right? We're talking about full inclusivity across all variables of human existence. And we really take a lot of pride in that. We also leverage our networks because a lot of us are from other places other than Iceland. And so we leverage our networks abroad to not only bring visibility to those working and creating in the tech sector here in Iceland and promoting them abroad, but also leveraging our own networks to bring people together and let the outside world know, and also let people here in Iceland, they're like, oh, I need a resource that knows about AI. And we're like, oh, surely we know somebody in the States or in Lithuania or in the UK that could, help you along with that. So for us, it's just this kind of all-encompassing approach. I think there are just a lot of just different challenges. Even recently speaking to a VC, I was collecting a list of tech companies within Iceland. A journalist asked me to collect some thoughts, and I went to the Women Tech Iceland community because, of course, I know a lot of these companies, but I know that I'm not the only ear on the ground. So I wanted to get input from the community, and all of these great companies surfaced. But what was fascinating, and the VC mentioned as well, is that while a lot of these companies are actually founded by women or have women executives, the tech teams themselves are still predominantly male. And we want to know why that is, with so many women coming out of the computer science programs at the universities here. Where is that drop-off point? And I think like one cruise through Twitter will give you a sense. There's a lot of dialogue around kind of inherent bias and then, covert and overt gender, I'll just call it misogyny, things that impede people wanting to be in that community and continue with it. And I do think that one of the biggest challenges is not making women fit into a patriarchal framework that we've continued to try to do, right? Well, we'll just keep putting more and more women in tech. But if we're not changing the system in which we operate that's accommodating and designed for that inclusivity, then we're going to continue to have these cliffs of people coming into tech getting burned out and saying like, you know what, like I don't want to have to explain myself just because of my gender, or I don't want to feel like I'm not heard in a room because of my gender. And I think that's a much bigger issue that we need to address. And there's no easy answer. It's going to take all stakeholders.
And do you see any positive move? I see that it's really something complex and needs really broader approach. But do you feel any positive move or something?
I mean, there's always positives, right? I think one of the things with advocates and activists and anyone that's kind of on the ground is that you're in the day-to-day of this movement forward. And so you're a problem solver, and your goal is solutions, right? So you have to see the problems in order to solve them. So a lot of us who are kind of, I guess, on the front lines of that, we do get bogged down with they're like, okay, that challenge is solved, moving on to the next challenge. But
if you look over a longer period of time, there are more positive steps. These laws that have requirements for the number of women on boards didn't happen because people were just sitting around waiting for that to happen. It took advocacy, it took anger, it took change, it took educating others on a different point of view, you know, and it took all stakeholders, right? It took advocacy from men. And I think that it's there's a ton of positive things. I'm in love with the community that we have here. We did a panel discussion in the spring. It was just one of the most diverse panels in thought and in practice and in disciplines within tech, in ethnicity, in gender. There was a lot of different factors that we were very calculated in considering when we were pulling together our panels, as we are with all of our panels. And I think that that makes a difference because, to the ultimate point, representation does really matter, right? It's just so it's so important to see some version of yourself in a role, and to have that support, particularly in these dev environments where they're heavily male. It is exhausting to be the only woman in the room. So I always recommend that if you're going to make hires onto your dev team, don't just make one woman hire. Actively go after women on the team so that there's a support network, and also several voices to change kind of whatever the status quo is in that particular place.
I know Paulus has a question actually to ask one of the panelists.
Yes, thank you, Mantas. Paula, you sound terrific, and the fantastic work that you're doing in Iceland is so inspiring. I was just captivated by your work on inclusivity and on sort of working with the immigrant women population and making sure that they kind of fit into the culture locally.
Well, for me, it's not a they. I am an immigrant, right? And I think that that's what's actually really interesting is that people don't. I never viewed myself as an immigrant because before I moved to Iceland, I wasn't. And so even though I was always empathetic to what goes into that, until I experienced it myself, it just brought it to a completely deeper level, you know. So
and this is so interesting to me, in the sense, where do you see the main challenges? Is it on the organizations that need to take these individuals in, or is it really on the individuals themselves to be able to adopt?
I mean, I think it's both, but I think it's both. But I also think that we're here, right? Like, one of the things, especially me, I mean, I'm in a privileged position. Let's not forget. Like, I was well established in my career before I moved here. I had executive experience. I had a network here. Not everyone has that luxury. And also, I'm a middle-class white woman, right? That's a whole other level of privilege there. And I think that if you ignore those factors, then you're not actually being truthful about it's on women to step up to the plate. It's on immigrants to step up to the plate. But systematically speaking, I think the larger challenge is for the businesses, the leadership in these businesses, the boards, the shareholders. Shareholders always only remember their power with like income, but they never actually, you know, like, as shareholders, we want to make sure our board is monitoring the leadership of this team and hiring people that have diverse perspectives and thoughts, and it's really critical to inclusion across all segments, whether it's LGBTQIA+, whether it's disabilities, whether it's ethnicity or religious differences. There's all kinds of things that go into it, but I do think that you can start with one of the biggest factors, which is gender, right?
Yes. Super, super interesting. Thanks for sharing.
So I think we are closing now the panel, but I think the closing word was very good from Paula, that we indeed, it's a good place to start with women, but there is much more to be done, so we shouldn't stick only to that. So thank you very much for your discussion, and then I give back the floor to Ula, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mantas. Thanks, Paula, Paulus, and Sigrid. It was very interesting discussion that you had there. And actually, we are almost done. We had a number of speakers, speeches, initiatives being presented, and discussions. And now it's time to officially close not only the conference itself, but the project of Women Go Tech and Norden collaboration. And I want to invite Helen Nilsson, a director at Nordic Council of Ministers office here in Lithuania, to close it. Hello, Helen.
So what a great afternoon we have had together. I have learned, and I'm sure all of you, a lot of new stuff, got very useful information, as well as been inspired. So first, I would like to say that we, the Nordic Council of Ministers office in Lithuania, are very happy and proud for our collaboration and partnership with Women Go Tech. The basis for the Nordic Council of Ministers work in Lithuania is the Nordic Vision 2030, which aims to make our region the most sustainable and integrated region in the world, promoting the idea of green, competitive, and socially sustainable region. As written in our ongoing Finnish Nordic Council of Ministers presidency program for 2021, the Nordic countries will only be successful in becoming a driving force for peace, sustainable development, and welfare for all, leaving no one behind if we do it together. Developing international cooperation in an even closer partnership with the Baltic countries. Furthermore, if I stay on talking a little bit more about a competitive region, in many respects, the Nordic countries has been historically successful in combining an innovative and growing economy with a society that embrace also the entire sustainability agenda, both in terms of social equality and environmental awareness. Equality in working life help our economies grow stronger by having a large and more skilled workforce that we have heard throughout the afternoon. With a view to making the most of our strengths and the opportunities presented by green growth and digitalization, we need well-functioning and dynamic labor market, a variety of skills and competencies, and continued success in research and innovation. Having said that, equal opportunity for all of us is very important, and we should stress the importance of diversity. That was very much mentioned also in the almost the last question in the panel. The project Women Go Tech is a concrete step in the right direction and totally in line with our vision and aims. And thank you all the team of Women Go Tech that we have had the pleasure to work with since we started our project in 2019. And to be honest, even before that, we cooperated. Women Go Tech has to say traveled around our region, organizing network workshops started in Riga at the Nordic Council of Ministers office, to Tallinn, and then to Copenhagen, where the workshop was held at our Nordic House and headquarters, up to the Nordic House of Reykjavik. Then the pandemic came and we went online to continue the journey to Stockholm, Oslo, and Helsinki. And today, like a finale, inviting all of you. I hope we have been able to create a relevant network that are strong and have the potential to stay strong and relevant also after this project. And we gladly would like to be part of that network. The Nordic Council of Ministers has a solid implementation and support track record when it comes to work in the field of equal opportunity and to support women and girls more when relevant than boys and men, such as in STEM. And I would like to spell STEAM. Let me allow to give some recommendations or some repetitions or things for thoughts referring to some recent studies and research. Maybe nothing new for you, but still important to mention and to stress. Compared to men, the female faculty members in STEAM have a high risk to experience social and scholarly isolation. This is because the careers in STEM are still male-dominated. The women can, for example, feel excluded from their interaction with other faculty members. We still have negative stereotypes in our society that can make women less likely to choose a career in STEM. This is shaped by cultural beliefs. According to stereotypes, girls lack the ability to succeed in the male-dominated careers. Women are often seen as less intelligent and also less competent to work in STEAM. To be able to make a difference, we have to start with acknowledging the stereotypes that we have in our society. Both parents and educators are in an important position to change the negative stereotypes that discourage girls from working in STEAM. They have to create an environment for girls where they believe that the careers in this field are within their reach. The main thing is to make girls already from a young age more welcomed, or to feel more welcome to work in this sector. Girls must be raised in an environment where they have taught that they can do anything they put their mind to. And I think at least about future heroes. When I just said that sentence, it is also important not to intentionally suggest that girls need to work extra hard to compensate their low ability compared to boys. The effort that both boys and girls are encouraged to do should be equal. Younger girls should be shown examples for women who works in STEM. Here we have the role models. In other words, we should be able to give role models for the girls to look up to. When girls are told in a relatable way about these women and their path to success, it will be easy for them to envision themselves following a similar path. There are, of course, much more to say, but I will stop here and I would like to once more thank our partner, Women Go Tech Lithuania, all of you who have today participated, but also all organizations, individuals who have participated throughout the projects, for your time, engagement, sharing your knowledge, experience, being open-minded, and so much more. Thank you, and let us, with this relevant network established in Lithuania, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Iceland, Latvia, Norway, and Sweden, continue to work together to get more wiser and stronger, with the aim to create an inclusive, equal society, leaving no one behind. Let's be heroes and give space to future heroes. Let's think pan-Nordic-Baltic with inclusion, diversity, and equal opportunity in the main focus. Thank you for listening, and over to you, Ulla.
Thank you very much, Helen, for such an inspiring and positive closing note. It was a pleasure working with you, collaborating and partnering throughout these 2 years. And for everybody else who are still here with us, I just want to remind that in the chat section, there is a link to a Mira board where we invite you to leave your contacts and to connect with everyone who was here today and to keep building the network that is really a must for us to build the region of Nordic and Baltic. So thank you all. Please find the study of Mantas that Mantas presented in our website, womangotech.lt. The link is as well posted in YouTube broadcast. And I wish you a very lovely remaining of the week. Goodbye, everyone.